What really happened to the stars of Storage Wars? These were the people we laughed with, rooted for, and watched either strike gold or walk away empty-handed. Over the years, some of the familiar faces we loved slowly disappeared from the screen. Fans were left asking, did something tragic happen to them? Were there fights behind the scenes? Or did they simply decide to step away from the spotlight? The truth isn't as dark as some rumors make it sound, but it is just as surprising. Take Barry Weiss, for example. Barry wasn't just another cast member on Storage Wars. In many ways, he was the heart of the show. From the very first time he pulled up to an auction in one of his vintage cars, wearing his trademark gloves and flashing that cheeky grin, viewers knew he was different. Barry wasn't the type to shout the loudest or battle aggressively for storage lockers. Instead, he brought something special that the show really needed: genuine fun. While most of the other buyers had their eyes locked on profits, trying to squeeze as much money as possible out of every find, Barry treated each unit like a mystery box filled with adventure. For him, opening a storage locker wasn't just about the cash inside. It was about the stories and history hidden within those boxes. When Barry came across an old jukebox, he wasn't rushing to calculate its value. He was more interested in imagining the songs it had once played and the people who had danced to them. If he found vintage collectibles, he lit up with excitement like a child on Christmas morning. Barry reminded viewers that the true treasure wasn't always money. It was the thrill of discovery. One of the reasons Barry stood out so much was because he didn't need to win. Long before Storage Wars, Barry had already built his fortune in the produce business. The auctions weren't about survival for him. They were about enjoyment. Because of this, he could take risks no one else dared to. He would sometimes bid on storage lockers that looked worthless, just to see if there was something unusual hidden inside. Other times, he'd walk away from units that everyone else thought were valuable, simply because they didn't spark his interest. Fans loved this about him. He wasn't playing the same game as everyone else. He was there to have fun. Even when Barry's finds weren't worth much, he still made them entertaining. He could turn a dusty old chair into a mini history lesson on furniture design, or flip through a box of books and talk about long-forgotten authors. Unlike some cast members who only cared about quick profits, Barry truly respected the items he found. He treated them like pieces of history rather than just things to resell. His knowledge was impressive too. Barry wasn't just bluffing when he talked about antiques and collectibles. He really knew what he was looking at. But after 4 seasons, Barry made a surprising choice. He quietly stepped away from the show. There was no dramatic fight with the producers, no bitter exit, and no big announcement. He simply decided it was time to move on, the way someone might finish reading a beloved book and gently put it back on the shelf. Fans were sad to see him go, but most people understood. Barry had never seemed like a man chasing fame. He was just someone who loved the thrill of discovery and shared that joy with the world. After leaving Storage Wars, Barry slipped back into a quieter life. He returned to his true passions: collecting rare cars, searching for antiques, and living adventures away from television cameras. Every now and then, he made small appearances in interviews or at events, always with that same warm smile and mischievous energy that made him a fan favorite. For a while, life seemed great for Barry Weiss. But then, in 2019, everything changed. While riding his beloved motorcycle through the busy streets of Los Angeles, Barry Weiss's life changed in an instant. He was involved in a terrible accident that left him with severe chest and leg injuries, multiple broken bones, and internal damage. The man who always seemed untouchable, who could walk into any storage locker with unmatched confidence, suddenly found himself in a hospital bed fighting for his life. The recovery was long and painful. Barry had to go through several surgeries and spend months in rehabilitation. The same hands that once handled delicate antiques now had to relearn how to perform basic movements. The legs that carried him through countless auctions had to slowly remember how to walk again, step by step, without unbearable pain. For someone who lived such an adventurous, fast-paced life, being forced into stillness must have been incredibly hard. But Barry's spirit, the very thing that made him so loved by Storage Wars fans, helped him push through the darkness. He faced recovery the same way he once approached storage lockers, with patience, curiosity, and determination. He didn't rush the process or get angry when setbacks came. Instead, he treated healing like another journey, focusing on each small victory day by day. When Barry finally started making public appearances again, fans were overjoyed. His humor was still sharp, and his smile was as warm as ever. But there was a noticeable change. He walked a little more carefully and spoke with a bit more thoughtfulness. The accident had left its mark, but it had not taken away his spirit. Barry Weiss was still Barry Weiss, just a little wiser, and maybe even stronger. Then there was Dave Hester. If Storage Wars was a poker game, Dave was the man who slammed his chips on the table just to shake up the room. From the very beginning, he became the one viewers loved to hate. Loud, confident, and willing to outbid someone by even a single dollar, Dave thrived on chaos and competition. His trademark, YUUUP, became both his signature catchphrase and a constant irritation for his rivals. He wanted the best lockers, the highest profits, and he always aimed to get the last word. But in 2018, Dave's life took an unexpected turn. Late one night, he suffered a stroke that left him struggling to speak and move properly. Instead of standing tall at an auction, he was lying in a hospital bed facing weeks of difficult rehab. For a man who thrived on control and confidence, it was a humbling and frightening moment. Dave disappeared from the show for a while as he focused on recovering his health. The man who once fought tooth and nail over dusty boxes now had a completely different fight, the fight for his life and his independence. Slowly but surely, he rebuilt his strength and returned to the world of auctions. Even though Storage Wars was no longer his main stage, fans quickly noticed the change in him. Dave seemed calmer, less obsessed with constant battles, and more focused on simply living life. Whether people missed his antics or not, they respected him for what he overcame. It showed that even the loudest voices sometimes need to fall silent before finding their strength again. And then came Ivy Calvin. Unlike some who eased their way into Storage Wars, Ivy stormed onto the scene with boldness and energy. A former arena football player and mixed martial artist, he carried himself with the kind of confidence that made people step aside when he walked in. Nicknamed the King of Palmdale, Ivy had a sharp eye for hidden value. He could spot a treasure buried under dusty blankets faster than anyone else. For Ivy, buying lockers was never just about money. It was about discipline, order, and pride in his business. He ran his resale shop, Grandma's Attic, with a sense of responsibility, making sure every single item had its place. He combined sharp instincts with a fun personality, often cracking jokes with other bidders even while securing valuable finds. His mix of toughness and humor made him both respected and entertaining, turning him into one of the show's most dependable stars. Over time, fans began to notice a change in Ivy Calvin. He was appearing less often, and while his booming laugh and sharp competitive spirit were still there, they weren't as frequent as before. Away from the cameras, Ivy had started focusing more on his health and choosing to spend quality time with his family. In later seasons, his sons often joined him at the auctions, turning what once felt like high-pressure battles into something more like family outings. By quietly stepping back without making a big announcement, Ivy showed that sometimes the greatest victories in life aren't the ones seen on television, but the ones that happen behind closed doors with loved ones. Daryl Sheets, on the other hand, was a completely different kind of presence. If Barry Weiss was like the cool uncle, Daryl was the wild older cousin, the one willing to take big risks just for the rush of winning. Known as the Gambler, Daryl earned his nickname by always chasing the big scores. He didn't hesitate to throw down serious money on a locker if he believed it might contain something extraordinary. Many times, his son Brandon stood by his side, learning not only how to take chances but also experiencing firsthand the moments when those gambles didn't pay off. For Daryl, the auctions weren't just about making money, they were about teaching his son lessons and building a legacy that Brandon could be proud of. But in early 2019, everything changed for him. After what seemed like a normal day, Daryl suddenly felt intense chest pain. At first, he brushed it off, but the pain grew worse until it became clear he was having a massive heart attack. It wasn't just a health scare, It was a fight for his life. The man who thrived on adrenaline and bold moves was suddenly forced to slow down, not because he wanted to, but because he had no other choice. His absence left a noticeable gap on Storage Wars. Fans missed his huge wins, his heartbreaking losses, and the fearless energy he always brought to the auctions. Then there were Brandi Passanti and Jared Schultz, the couple that viewers felt like they knew personally. They were like the neighbors next door who somehow made it to every party. Not because they were flashy, but because they were so fun to watch. From the very beginning, it was clear they were complete opposites. Brandi was calm, focused, and practical. She would carefully scan every storage unit, studying whether the piles of boxes were worth the risk. Jared, on the other hand, was impulsive and restless. He often wanted to bid before Brandi had even finished looking. That balance between them was what made them so entertaining. Fans could practically see Brandi rolling her eyes as Jared jumped into risky decisions, and they could see Jared grinning when she turned out to be right. Together, their mix of caution and excitement sometimes led to big wins and, at other times, costly mistakes. Their partnership extended beyond the auctions too. They ran a small thrift store where they turned their finds into profit. But while their playful banter made them fan favorites on screen, things were very different behind the scenes. Away from the cameras, their relationship was going through serious struggles. By 2020, the news quietly surfaced that Brandi and Jared had split up. There was no dramatic TV meltdown or ugly public feud. It simply ended. Later, Brandi hinted that their relationship had been difficult for a long time. She didn't share every detail, but what she did say made it clear it had been painful and complicated. After the breakup, Brandi turned her attention toward raising her children and stepped back from the demanding filming schedule. Jared also slipped out of the spotlight, and without their back-and-forth chemistry, the show felt noticeably different. Fans didn't just miss them as individuals, they missed the unique energy they brought as a team. Brandi and Jared showed fans that not all treasure hunts were about antiques, collectibles, or profits. Sometimes the real treasure was in the chemistry between two people, even if that bond didn't last forever. Their ups and downs proved that relationships can be just as unpredictable as the storage lockers they opened. When Renee and Casey Nazoda joined Storage Wars, they immediately brought a fresh energy. Renee's booming voice could cut through any crowd, and his sharp instincts made him a strong competitor. Casey, with her warm personality and attention to detail, balanced him perfectly. They weren't just business partners pretending for the cameras. They were a real team in both life and work. Renee had grown up surrounded by the resale business and carried years of experience, while Casey added her own strengths in spotting quality pieces and keeping their business organized. Together, they formed a powerful partnership. On screen, they were fun to watch. They laughed together, teased each other, and respected each other's instincts. When they hit a big win, they shared the victory side by side, and when a locker was a disappointment, they simply shrugged it off and moved forward. But life outside the show brought challenges. In 2023, Renee's father passed away after a short battle with lung cancer. The loss was deeply painful, and fans could hear the emotion in Renee's voice when he spoke about it. He openly thanked his supporters for their kindness during that time. The tragedy seemed to shift the couple's focus. Instead of only chasing profits and big wins, they began to put more energy into building something lasting, both in their family and in their business. Dan and Laura Dotson were another cornerstone of Storage Wars. For many fans, the show simply wouldn't feel complete without Dan's lightning-fast auction chant or Laura's bright, welcoming smile. Unlike the other cast members, they weren't there to compete for lockers. They were there to keep the auctions alive, and they did it with unmatched style. Dan had been an auctioneer long before television came knocking, and his rapid-fire delivery could make even a dusty pile of boxes sound exciting. Laura, always at his side, helped keep the energy high and the bidding atmosphere fun. Together, they kept the auctions moving smoothly, even when tensions ran high. But in 2014, their world was shaken. One morning, Dan woke up feeling strange. His vision blurred, and within minutes, he collapsed. Laura acted quickly, rushing him to the hospital. Doctors discovered a brain aneurysm, a life-threatening condition that required immediate surgery. Without it, Dan might not have survived. The operation was dangerous, and the recovery process was long and grueling. Through it all, Laura never left his side. Fans were relieved when Dan finally returned to the auction block, even though he moved more carefully than before. That health scare changed their perspective. They still loved the auction world, but they also came to appreciate just how fragile life could be. Their smiles seemed a little warmer, their laughs a little louder, and their bond even stronger after surviving such a close call. Then there was Mary Padian, who stood out from the other bidders in her own special way. While many approached auctions with calculators in their heads, carefully weighing profit margins and resale value, Mary saw each locker as an adventure. To her, a dusty box wasn't just clutter, it was a mystery waiting to be solved, a forgotten piece of history that might have a second life. Mary first appeared on Storage Wars, Texas, where her creativity quickly made her memorable. With a background in journalism and design, including experience working at Architectural Digest, she had an eye for detail and a gift for imagining how ordinary items could be transformed. While others might walk past an old trunk or a beat-up chair, Mary could instantly picture how to restore it into something beautiful. Her upbeat, quirky personality made her fun to watch, and her excitement was infectious. Unlike some of the other bidders who often clashed, Mary was friendlier and more collaborative. She built bonds with fellow cast members, sometimes teaming up to tackle a locker together. When she transitioned from the Texas spin-off to the California version of Storage Wars, she brought the same charm and creativity. Fans even nicknamed her the Junkster, because of her talent for turning so-called junk into treasures. Over time, though, Mary started appearing less on the show. She shifted her focus toward running her online store, where she could share her restored creations with people who appreciated her artistic touch. She also took on more personal projects, traveled, and explored opportunities outside of the constant filming schedule. Even though she's no longer a regular on Storage Wars, her spirit still resonates with fans who admired her creativity and enthusiasm. Mary Padian showed viewers that Storage Wars was never just about chasing profits. For her, it was also about passion, imagination, and discovering beauty in the most unexpected places. She proved that even ordinary, overlooked items could be given a new life with a little creativity. Emily Wares joined the show much later than many of the original stars, but she came with a powerful background and real expertise. By the time she appeared in season 10, she was already an award-winning auctioneer. Emily had started her career at just 17 years old in Iowa, training under her father, who was also in the business. With years of practice, she became known for her lightning-fast auction chant and her confident stage presence. Her arrival on the show brought something different. Unlike most of the cast, she wasn't there to bid. She was there to run the auctions with precision and professionalism. Her polished style and incredible speed on the microphone impressed even the most experienced buyers. At only 27 years old, she broke barriers in a field that had long been dominated by older men, becoming one of the youngest professional auctioneers ever featured on the series. Emily wasn't just skilled, though, she was also fun. She kept the auctions lively, often joining in the cast's playful banter and throwing in her own quick comebacks. Fans loved her mix of talent and personality, and she quickly gained a following. Her time on the show only lasted a season or two, but her exit wasn't the result of drama or conflict. Instead, she chose to focus on her personal life. Emily married her longtime partner, started a family, and even pursued another passion, singing. She began performing at local events and sharing her music online, showing that her creativity and stage presence extended far beyond the auction world. Then there was Kenny Crossley, a man you simply couldn't ignore even in the busiest auction crowd. With his easygoing charm, deep southern drawl, and natural sense of humor, he had a way of making everyone smile. Even when a locker didn't deliver much, Kenny could turn the moment into something entertaining. Originally from New Orleans, Kenny had lived a colorful life before joining Storage Wars. He had worked in law enforcement, run his own business, and taken on a variety of odd jobs. Each experience seemed to give him a treasure chest of stories that he happily shared with both the cast and the audience. His entry into the show came through his friendship with Barry Weiss, one of the most eccentric and beloved stars. Kenny first appeared alongside Barry, tagging along on his wild and unpredictable buying adventures. Fans instantly loved Kenny's quick wit and down-to-earth personality. When Barry eventually left the series, Kenny stayed behind and built his own place in the cast. Unlike some of the more aggressive bidders, Kenny kept things relaxed. He wasn't interested in starting heated battles over lockers. Instead, he picked his spots carefully, often going for smaller, overlooked units. His eye for unusual, quirky items matched his playful personality perfectly. Over time, Kenny became known for his hilarious one-liners and ability to lighten even the tensest moments. He had a gift for making people laugh, whether it was his fellow cast members at the auctions or viewers watching from home. Eventually, Kenny began appearing less frequently. His absence wasn't due to any behind-the-scenes issues. He simply shifted his focus toward other ventures. He explored new business opportunities, including launching his own clothing line and even running a donut shop. Still, his presence is missed. Fans often post online wondering where he is and whether he'll make a return to the show. For many, Kenny wasn't just a bidder. He was one of the brightest personalities that brought warmth and humor to Storage Wars.